Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the very last shloka of chapter 8, shloka number 28. Vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva
Vedeshu yagneshu tapassu chaiva
daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtham
daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam
atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva
atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva
yogi param sthanamupayati chadyam.
yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vedeshu,
Vedeshu,
in the study of the Vedas.
in the study of the Vedas.
Yajneshu,
Yagneshu,
in the performances of yajna, sacrifice.
in the performances of yajna, sacrifice.
Tapashu,
Tapashu,
in undergoing different types of austerities.
in undergoing different types of austerities.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certainly.
Daneshu,
Daneshu,
in giving charities.
in giving charities.
Yat,
Yet,
that which.
that which.
Punya phalam,
Punya phalam,
result of pious work.
result of pious work.
Pradishtam,
Pradishtam,
indicated.
indicated.
Atyeti,
Atyeti,
surpasses.
surpasses.
Tat sarvam,
Tat sarvam,
all those.
all those.
Idam,
Idam,
this.
this.
Viditva,
Viditva,
knowing.
knowing.
Yogi,
Yogi,
the devotee.
the devotee.
Param,
Param,
supreme.
supreme.
Sthanam,
Sthanam,
abode.
abode.
Upaiti,
Upaiti,
achieves.
achieves.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Adyam,
Adyam,
original.
original.
Translation: a person who accepts the path of devotional service
A person who accepts the path of devotional service
is not bereft of the results
is not bereft of the results
derived from studying the Vedas,
derived from studying the Vedas,
performing sacrifices,
performing sacrifices,
undergoing austerities,
undergoing austerities,
giving charity,
giving charity,
or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities.
or pursuing philosophical or fruitive activities.
Simply by performing devotional service,
Simply by performing devotional service,
he attains all these,
he attains all this,
and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode.
and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode.
So this is the concluding shloka of chapter 8. And what is the Lord stating in this particular shloka? That person who is performing bhakti yoga automatically gets the results of having studied the Vedas, of having performed sacrifices, of having undergone austerities, of giving in charity, and engaging in the pursuit of philosophical truths. So simply by bhakti alone, you get all the results of doing all the other yogic paths as well. And ultimately, by performing bhakti, you will reach the abode of Krishna. So Prabhupada has written quite a lengthy purport to this concluding verse. So I would request all of you to take about 5 minutes of your time today and read the purport written by Prabhupada. So for the sake of time, we have shortened what Prabhupada is saying in the purport. So Prabhupada says that this verse is essentially summarizing 2 chapters, the 7th chapter and the 8th chapter. because both of them deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. So Prabhupada writes that one has to study the Vedas under the guidance of the spiritual master and undergo many austerities and penances while living under his care. A brahmachari has to live in the home of the spiritual master just like a servant, and he must beg alms from door to door and bring them to the spiritual master. After the student studies the Vedas under the master for some time, at least from age 5 to 20, he becomes a man of perfect character. After this training, the brahmachari is allowed to enter into the household life and marry. When he is a householder, he has to perform many sacrifices so that he may achieve further enlightenment. He must also give charity according to the country, time, and candidate, discriminating among charity in goodness, in passion, and in ignorance as described in Bhagavad Gita. Then after retiring from household life, upon accepting the order of Vanaprastha, he undergoes severe penances, living in forests, dressing with tree bark, not shaving, etc. By carrying out the orders of brahmacharya, householder life, Vanaprastha, and finally sannyasa, one becomes elevated to the perfectional stage of life. So Prabhupada is summarizing what it takes if you follow the traditional process of Vedic culture, which is to study under the Guru and live with the Guru like a menial servant and serve him in that way. Then, after you've completed your studies under the Guru, you can take a call whether you want to continue to be a brahmachari or whether you want to enter into householder life to become a grihastha. If you choose to enter into the householder life, then there also you have to do a lot of tapasya and austerity. What are those austerities? You have to give in charity. You have to do so many other things. Yajna, tapa, and dana. 3 things that everybody has to do, irregardless of the ashram. So after having lived a householder life and you've handled your responsibilities very nicely, then you can consider retiring from householder life and enter the ashram called Vanaprastha. Here also you have to undergo severe penances because you're entering the forest, you've given up all of your material belongings and you're preparing yourself for entering the eternal abode. So like this, until you become sannyas, it takes a long time of perfecting one's life through this standard traditional process of studying the scriptures, then getting married, then entering Vanaprastha, and finally sannyas life. So after Prabhupada has described all of this, he comes to the beauty of Krishna consciousness. How simple and sublime it is, and that one doesn't need to really struggle through the process that we have just heard about in the previous slide. Prabhupada writes, the beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life, which means none of the rituals that hold true for the other yogic processes apply to one who is practicing Krishna consciousness. The words idam viditva indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Krishna in this chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada emphasizes that when we try to understand these 2 chapters, the 7th chapter and the 8th chapter, we should actually hear them in the association of devotees. We should not read them on our own and try to speculate as to what Krishna really means. So since the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita are considered the very essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the topmost teachings of the Bhagavad Gita are contained in the middle 6 chapters that glorify Bhakti Yoga. So Prabhupada writes that the first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like the coverings for the middle 6 chapters, which are especially protected by the Lord. So on one side, it is protected by Karma Yoga. On the other side, it is protected by Jnana Yoga. And in the middle, you find Bhakti Yoga. Prabhupada writes that if one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially these middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. For one can achieve all the results of these activities simply by Krishna consciousness. Then Prabhupada writes a little bit more. So I have just picked up the very last paragraph here from Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada says this is the way the devotee actually perfects themselves, by being in the constant association of other devotees and slowly letting go of their lack of trust, lack of faith. And once this faith becomes very strong and determined, Prabhupada says that all of our misgivings have been cleared away and one becomes fixed up in study. So it is only then when you really begin to relish the Bhagavad Gita. When you've practiced Krishna consciousness for some time in the association of devotees, then you get the taste for studying the Bhagavad Gita. And when you get this taste for studying the Bhagavad Gita and for reading the Bhagavad Gita, then Prabhupada says, you're always Krishna conscious. You get to that feeling when you feel that you're always connected to the Lord. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. So first you have to understand the philosophy. And after understanding the philosophy, you then slowly let go of all of your hang-ups and become completely occupied in thinking about Krishna all the time. Therefore, Prabhupada says you fall in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. So the whole context of this chapter is, it is to do with Arjuna's question, how can we always think of you at the time of death? So what did we cover in this chapter? Just to come back to what we did in the first shloka, when we understood the trajectory of this chapter. So Arjuna asks those 6 questions. Then Krishna says how you can actually remember him at the time of death, which was the answer to Arjuna's 7th question. And then the Lord talks about different ways by which one can remember him, by practicing Yoga Mishra Bhakti or by practicing Shuddha Bhakti. And the Lord also says, if you really look at how the material world operates and the spiritual world operates, then you'll know what your destination is. You will not select any destination in a material world, even if it is the heavenly planets. Because even the heavenly planets, including the planet of Brahma, has to go through dissolution. Therefore, the only destination for a devotee is the spiritual world. And then there is a contrast between remembering the Lord through Bhakti Yoga than remembering him through Ashtanga Yoga, the 2 different paths, the path of light and the path of darkness, how difficult they are to time. So essentially, this entire chapter is talking about how to remember Krishna at the time of death, to attain Krishna at the time of death. So how do you elevate one's consciousness so that even at the time of death, you're thinking about Krishna? Then in that case, you have to always be practicing Krishna consciousness throughout one's life in order to have a chance and a hope of actually remembering Krishna at the time of death. So practice leads you to perfection. So if you practice Krishna consciousness, then the perfection of your life is to remember Krishna at the time of death, which is our final exam.
If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification. If you'd like to join our classes every day, please check the details in the description section of this video. We look forward to serving you.